Listen up, people. That's right. It's time to listen to the sparks of bliss in your life. I'm your host and life coach, Caroline de Posada from Miami, Florida. And this podcast is an invitation to join me in upgrading our mindset, wellness, and relationships so that together we create a life that unlocks our bliss. Join me each week as we explore practical strategies, inspiring stories, and the moments of clarity, or as we like to call them, los momenticos, that make the world a little more magical. Consider this your weekly dose of wisdom in your pocket. Are you ready? Let's do this.
Hey, listeners, welcome to episode number 46 of Bliss'n Up. So today's episode is an episode that I think you're going to want to hear more than once and share with somebody who you know is up-leveling, whether it's their mindset, their wellness, their relationships, or their career. Because we are going to be discussing timeless philosophies and principles that will serve you well. So I really hope that you stay tuned for the entire episode on this one. Okay, so this month I have been focused on Magnetizing March. I've been thinking a lot about this concept of being magnetic and creating magnetism in our lives. So if you are new to this podcast and you're not familiar with this practice that I have, every month I create a theme for the month. And I do this as part of my living with intention framework because I believe that when we live with intention, we create our reality. We create a life that serves us well. And it is the number one most important aspect of really stepping into a meaningful, successful, blissful existence. Okay, so I chose the theme for March to be Magnetize March. And maybe you adopted this theme along my side because you followed along and you like to use the themes that I choose for us as a collective. Or maybe you chose your own theme and it's not Magnetize March. But either way, regardless of the theme that you chose for this month, creating magnetic energy is such an important thing to understand. It could be life-changing when you start to embrace your own magnetism. That's why I feel like this episode is so important. So as I've been thinking a lot about what magnetism is, I realized that it's very easy to confuse magnetism with manifestation. And the reason we confuse the two is because when you're thinking about becoming more magnetic, it's really because you are trying to attract the thing you would like to manifest. Makes sense, right? A manifestation is about creating specific outcomes or specific desires. When we think about what we want to manifest, you could probably come up with a bunch of things off the bat that you would want to manifest. Maybe it's a house on the beach. Maybe it's a romantic vacation. Maybe it's a promotion or a certain amount of money or a dream career. Whatever it is, it's usually pretty clear and pretty specific when you think about it. And of course, that's important because when you have specificity about what you are trying to create or about what it is that you desire, then it leads you on a path to be able to make those things come true. It gives you direction. It acts as a North Star to keep you on path. So it is important to know what it is that you would like to manifest. However, we do not have control of outcomes. My father used to say that the one thing you could not plan for or predict is what he would call the X factor. And the X factor is the thing you don't know that might happen. It could be way beyond your expectation and blow your outcome out of the water, right? So it could be something that is way bigger than you ever imagined, or it could be a complete detour from the outcome and give you a completely different result than that maybe you didn't think you wanted, or maybe you consider it to be a negative intervention, but nonetheless, it is what you experienced. So because there is this X factor, and because we do not control outcomes, I have subscribed to the philosophy of do the work, surrender the outcome. To me, that is the most important philosophy to live by. You do the work and you surrender the outcome, because sometimes the outcome is not what you expect, but it's actually better. So I always think, I want this or better. I do not know exactly where my life is going, but hopefully it's this or better. And I am always open and curious about what the surprises are going to be along the way. So why am I giving you that distinction? Because the difference between manifestation and magnetism is that magnetism is about embodying the identity and the energy that naturally attracts your desires to you. Magnetism is about becoming the force rather than trying to force the results. And that is something you do have control over. You can become more magnetic. You can increase your magnetism. You can up-level your energy. That is something that you can control. So we always want to focus on what we can control, what is within our control, and surrender what is not. So here's a random example to really bring this point home for you. Let's say that you are marketing a product or a service. So part of your marketing strategy, you've been told, is to post on social media, right? I'm sure most people are familiar with this concept. You know, you have something you want to sell, you post it on social media. Now, what you are trying to do by posting on social media is you are trying to manifest sales and customers, right? That's what you're trying to manifest. So the action is to post on social media. But magnetism is about the energy with which you post on social media. So if you decide that you're going to post with confidence, with authenticity, maybe using some mystery, some excitement, some curiosity, if you level up the energy with which you create that post and with which you share on social media, that is magnetizing that post. You can take the same exact action without magnetism. You can just go through the motions and do whatever you're supposed to do. So X product needs to be posted on social media. You create a graphic, you post it, you're done, check the box, hope for the best. And that could also be do the work, surrender the outcome. I'm gonna post on social media like I'm supposed to, and I'm gonna surrender whether I get it or not, I get a client or not, and that's it. That's the action. But when you are magnetic about it, when you're excited about it, when you're confident about it, now you're posting with a different energy, and that energy changes your experience, but it also changes the consumer's experience, because that energy is transferable. It's contagious. They feel it. So all of a sudden, they're drawn to your post in a way that maybe they hadn't been drawn before, or maybe something sparks their curiosity, sparks their interest, and it's coming from being magnetic. And the idea that I really want you to take away from this is you can show up and do the work to produce the outcomes you desire in your life. You can show up to eat healthier and exercise so that you can lose weight. You can show up to try to improve your marriage. You can show up at work to try to create more sales and make more money. You can show up from the perspective of checking a box and doing what you're supposed to be doing. And you can do that without joy, without excitement. You can do that from a very sacrificial place of, this is what I have to do. Woe is me. This is my life. If I have to improve my marriage, well, then I guess I have to go out on a date night, right? I mean, you can approach things like that, or you can take the same actions with magnetism. And if you choose to do that, all of a sudden it feels effortless. It feels energizing. It feels exciting. It just, like my kids would say, hits different. And that's what I want for you. Okay, so as I've been studying this month, I've come up with 3 principles to help you nurture a more magnetic existence. Okay. The first one is creating belief while releasing entitlement. So let me give you an example of this. So I coach a couple, and in that relationship, the wife, one of her biggest complaints is that she doesn't feel that her husband pays enough attention to her or that he prioritizes her. And she's got some specific examples in which she feels like she's not the priority. And that seems like a reasonable thing. We all want to be prioritized in our relationships. We all want to be wanted and paid attention to. And it's a very logical thing that she wants from her husband. But here's the thing. If you really look down and you start to peel the onions, her husband loves her deeply. He does pay attention to her and he does prioritize her. But there is a disconnect between them. And that disconnect, or there was a disconnect between them, it's gotten significantly better. But that disconnect was because of lack of belief and a sense of entitlement. So the wife did not believe that she was his priority. And because of that, she was always looking for evidence to support that she was not the priority. That's number one. But then there's a second part, which is she had expectations of what being the priority meant. She had created certain expectations in her mind of what being the priority meant. And those expectations turned into entitlement. So she was coming from a place where she would demand certain things from her husband. And if he didn't agree with that, or he didn't understand where she was coming from, she felt entitled to it, which then led her to trying to force it by demanding it and nagging about it and complaining about it. And then that led to her feeling like she's always begging and complaining for his attention and he doesn't give it to her. So it actually becomes a little bit of a vicious cycle. And at the end, nobody wins. So what she and I have been working on is first and foremost creating the belief that she is her husband's priority, that she is desirable, that she is in a loving, supportive marriage, while simultaneously releasing the entitlement or the expectation that things have to look exactly the way she thinks they should look. And by doing this, she has stopped nagging, she has stopped begging, she has started looking inward to see herself as a desirable, attractive version of herself. And that work has magnetized her marriage. And by her doing that work, her husband has also started to change his approach. He's also begun rewarding that behavior. He's begun responding to that. And in many ways, doing the things that she wanted him to do from the beginning. But they're not forced. Instead of her forcing him to do it, she's become the force that attracts him to do these things. Now, in their case, I've been able to work with both of them. So I've also had the opportunity to help the husband become more magnetic in his own way and create his beliefs and release his entitlements. So their results come a lot quicker because I have access to both of them. But even if it was only her doing the work, just this tweak of stepping into belief, into like this firm confidence and belief that you already are what you desire, and releasing entitlement about what that has to look like, that already creates incredible shifts in your internal and external relationships and in your life. Now, that leads us to the second principle in this nurturing a magnetic lifestyle, and that is where focus goes, energy flows, which I first learned through Tony Robbins. Okay, so this is about noticing. So to piggyback off of the example I just gave you about the husband and the wife that I'm working with, one of the issues that we were having was that the wife was only noticing what the husband wasn't doing. So remember how at the beginning I said that she didn't believe she was a priority in his life at the time that she started doing this work? Well, what happens is when you have a firm belief about your reality, you use confirmation bias to prove that you are right. So we are always looking for evidence to support what our version of our reality is, even if we don't like that reality. That's the crazy thing. We want to support our beliefs, even if we don't like those beliefs. It's almost like we just rather be right than be happy. And that happens a lot. It really does. So in her case, if her husband did two things right and one wrong, she only noticed the one thing that was wrong. Or she then thought that the two things that he did right were not well-intentioned, were not well-meaning. They weren't authentic. And of course, that goes back to the underlying belief she had about herself. Similarly, I have a client who had struggled with her weight her whole life, and she always used the scale as the metric of success, right? Whatever the scale says is what defines whether she is succeeding or failing. And what happened to her was that she had always done these radical diets, these fad things to dramatically drop the weight so that she could feel good about herself on the scale, but none of the things that she did were ever sustainable. So by the time that she came to work with me, we were working on creating a belief that she was a person who had a healthy lifestyle. So all the work was about nurturing that belief with exercise, making healthy choices, drinking less, upgrading her mindset, all of the things that create a wellness lifestyle. And she started having lots of progress in certain areas, except the scale. The scale was the one thing that wasn't budging. And that was where all her focus was going. So she, despite all the wonderful things that she was doing for her health, her energy kept flowing to the scale. And interestingly, what we resist persists. So the more she would focus on wanting the scale to change, it was almost like the less the scale would change. And for many years prior to that, she would force those results with these diets and with these extreme measures. But here she was becoming a magnetic version of herself and having to release entitlement to that scale, to what that scale said, number one. And number two, focus on what was working, noticing where there was progress. And she started to find evidence everywhere. And now, after doing all of this work and really starting to magnetize a healthy lifestyle, now she is starting to enjoy the benefits of the scale going down. But this time it's sustainable, because now, rather than trying to force that result, she has worked on becoming the force where that result is inevitable. Now, this happens in a lot of areas of our lives. Sometimes the problem isn't that we are attracting the wrong things. It's that we are only focused on the wrong things. So all of our energy goes towards those things. So the more you focus on that, the more it persists, and it actually becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So one of the keys of becoming more magnetic in your life is to notice what you are already attracting that you want in your life. And there's easy ways or simple practical ways of doing this. One is through success filing. Success begets success. So the more you focus on your successes, the more successes you attract into your life. Or maybe not attract is not the right word. Maybe you produce more success because you feel more successful. Another popular thing that you can do is establishing a gratitude practice. And some people, they think about a gratitude practice and it seems kind of like cliche, or like, oh, what are the 3 things I'm grateful for today? But I'm talking about an intentional practice of becoming more magnetic. So you start looking for the things that you are already attracting into your life that you are deeply grateful for. You start noticing that. And that's coming from a place of, I want my focus to go to the place that I want more energy to flow to. So the only way that I can do that is by paying attention. And the last one that is my favorite is what I call living with big eyes, which is noticing the magic, noticing the synchronicities. Every time you have a tiny little miracle in your life, you pay attention to it. And then all of a sudden, you start to see more of it. And then inadvertently, you become more magnetic to these things. There's been studies done, and I've talked about this in previous episodes, but there's been studies done of people who are considered lucky people, and lucky people have always had the belief that they are lucky. So then they always notice when they get lucky. And then because they notice when they get lucky, they seem to get lucky more often. And we think of luck as something that is not scientific, but they have scientifically studied people who seem to have luck on their side, and there is science behind it, which I think is really cool. So again, it's about focusing on the things you want to magnetize could totally change your life. And then the third principle of nurturing a more magnetic lifestyle is to create proximity to people that are attracting the life that you desire. Now, there are 2 popular sayings kind of aligned with this concept. One of them is that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That was a quote by Jim Rohn. And then the other one is a Spanish one that says, Dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres. Tell me who you hang around with and I'll tell you who you are. Here's the thing. I don't 100% agree with that. I don't think that the people that you surround yourself with necessarily define you. You could be an outlier. You could be the exception. The 5 closest people to you may not desire the same things that you want to attract, and yet you still attract it. I mean, I don't think that this is a steadfast law, but whether it's the 5 people that are closest to you or not, there is power in proximity to someone that can lead by example, that can guide you, that can mentor you, that can coach you, that can kind of lead the way for you towards the life that you want. So it doesn't have to be the 5 closest people to you, but there is power in proximity. I have a dear friend of mine, Luli, and I talk about her all the time in this podcast. It's so funny. But she's just been coming up a lot. The joke with her is that she is a magnet for awesome people. She's been saying that forever. She's always like, I'm a magnet for awesomeness. And she definitely attracts really high quality people. She just does. Now, with Luli, she's practicing the 3 principles. Number 1, she acts in the belief that she is a magnet for awesome people. Number 2, she notices the awesomeness in people. Like, that's such a big one. She pays attention and she finds the good in the people she surrounds herself with. And number 3, because she has proximity to some awesome people, those awesome people have proximity to other awesome people. So then her magnet gets stronger, the force gets stronger. So for me, having proximity to her increases my magnetism of awesome people because she already attracts that. So by her attracting it and me having proximity to her, it makes it easier for me to attract it. So if you're looking to manifest different results, if you're looking to create a different reality, one of the things that you can do is look for people that are already attracting that life and then create some level of proximity to those people. If you want to start eating healthier, it's really great to join a community of people that are invested in their nutrition. If you want to move more, it's easier when you find a community of people that you can move with. It's just easier when you create proximity to people that are already attracting the life that you want. And sometimes you can gain that proximity because you happen to have friends that are in that space. And sometimes you pay for that proximity by joining a community, hiring a coach, joining a fitness gym or club. It doesn't matter how you gain that proximity. What matters is that you're very intentional about it. So when you apply these principles, you are raising the likelihood of attracting the outcomes that you want. You can't guarantee those outcomes, but you can certainly get on the path and become the kind of person who creates their own reality. My dear friend Betsy always says that when you are trying to manifest something, the way you do it is by, she calls it be, do, have. She says, first you be it, then you do it, and then you will have it. Well, magnetism is about the being it. That is the first step, and that is what opens the door to everything else. And of course, there will be struggles along the way. There will be some surprises. Sometimes the outcomes are not exactly what we planned, but there is magic in the journey. There is so much magic in the journey. And in the process, you will be shocked at the life that you magnetize. I hope that this has given you a lot of food for thought and that you can spend the rest of March and maybe of the entire year becoming a more magnetic version of yourself and attracting all of the incredible, beautiful things that your heart most desires. Happy Sacred Sunday, and I will see you next week. That's it for today's episode. Thanks so much for being here. I am deeply, deeply grateful for this time to connect. If you're loving this podcast, I'd love if you could support me by subscribing, rating, and/or leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Those reviews help us so much. And if you know of someone who could really use a voice like mine in their head, please share this with them and let them know how much you care about their bliss. Now, if you are feeling called to dig deeper and really work on elevating your mindset, wellness, and your relationships to create a healthier, happier, and more meaningful life, then I invite you to schedule a 60-minute complimentary consultation with me. Let's have a meaningful conversation and see if working together is in our future. You can find the link to the calendar of consults right there in my show notes, but you can also connect with me on my website, carolinedeposada.com, or just send me a DM on Instagram @CarolineDePosada. Like my friend always says, the project is big and you're a part of it. So thanks for being here.